Okay, hi everyone. This is Joan, founder of OpenFort, and today we're going to talk about native wallet abstractions game edition. So I'm trying to focus more on the gaming specific use cases and how this kind of like merge everything together. So to start, the three things that I would love for you to take home from this presentation is that a kind of abstraction is already working. There's some trade-offs, like how expensive it might be, how complex it might be for the end developer, etc., but it's already working. Second point is that wallets must be fluid with gaming. I think we are too used to consumer wallets or other type of wallets to impose UX and UI designs on top of like applications. And with gaming, this obviously doesn't work, adds a lot of friction. And last but not least is that wallets are actually the key unlock for gaming because it basically accrues all the network effects for all the players. So to start, I'd like to make a short analogy with a psychologist, American psychologist called Abraham Maslow. He created this hierarchy of needs. I'd like to make a similar approach with our own wallet hierarchy of abstraction. I think a lot of people have been talking about abstraction, so kind of like what's next in the abstracted world. To start, I think like a little more like a year ago or so, we managed to start bringing like people on-chain using social logins, passkeys, and other type of like ways for people to abstract the whole seed phrase problem. Then we also abstracted the way that we interact with these chains, with these wallets directly, with things like session keys, where you have temporary permissions and scope permissions for the game or the application to interact with the smart contracts directly. Then we also wanted to abstract the gas fees. So why the hell do I need to send native tokens to those wallets that I just created to start interacting with the smart contracts? And last, and I think like everyone in this EthCC season have been hearing about intents, chain abstraction, etc. That's kind of like where everyone is trying to crack now, and like that's the last step towards a multi-chain world where I send a transaction from one chain to another chain, I can claim it in the other chain, etc., etc. But is it so? So once we got into this chain abstraction world, are we actually done? Are we actually in the promised land, the Ithaca? Well, I might argue that we're still not there. First, standards take time. I remember not long ago I did like this similar timeline with previous standards that when a CAM abstraction, the 437 was still like the most new standard, and now in less than a year or so we've come across like a Cambrian of like new standards. So standards are an evolution process where, yes, it lowers the base economic layer for everyone to start from the same process, from the same line, but it also adds a lot of complexity for game developers to keep up with all this technology. And last, when the other issue that why I think we are still not there is because when you start thinking from a user journey perspective, the UX is still terrible. Like game developers, they have to adapt the way that they create games to a software that was not designed for them to create games on the first place. So in this presentation, I'd like to focus on the second point and like how we can actually start creating a revolution for these game developers to design games the way that they want it and the way that they want to delight the user experiences. This is sort of like the four categories that I managed to put like wallets today in the gaming space. So you have embedded wallets. These are people that usually take care of the authentication as well as the signer management. So they have some sort of like custodial, non-custodial MPC solution. Game launchers where you previously need to connect your MetaMask before, and then everything goes through like that MetaMask or like that injected wallet. Consumer wallets, this is probably some of the wallets that you guys might have on your mobile phones or on your desktop applications. And last are chain wallets. Chain wallets are an interesting category because basically chain wallets are an answer to those ambitious game developers that are trying to create ecosystems from the get-go, that are trying to actually build their whole vision towards an ecosystem, towards a chain that allows them to design the game that they want, design the economy that they want, the interactions between wallets that they want. And so because of this category, like because of this segmentation that we have today, most of the game developers, they have to choose different wallet providers, and they have to do like their whole DD process of like, why do I need this? Why do I don't need this? Why should I go with you? What's your business model? How are you gonna work in the future? What's the vendor lock-in? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that brings a lot of fragmentation into space. Yes, they're all still addresses that you can send tokens to. They're all still somehow, they all have processes to export private keys, and then you can still take somewhere, like wallets somewhere else, et cetera. But liquidity is very fragmented. The fact that these wallets, they all have like different endpoints that might or might not cater to your own use case, it's still very troublesome for many game developers to onboard in the space. So the question I like to pose here is like, how do we actually help more game developers create ecosystems the same way that they today can create rollups, the same way that they today can create their own gaming chains. And so what I'd like to think here is that we first need to acknowledge that most of these game developers, they are not able to create these ecosystems because they don't understand half of the software that they're interacting with. They actually don't own half of that software, and what it basically means is that they need to go and read some random documentation at one point, then interact with another RPC in another fashion for another type of a standard in another way. So this becomes like very scattered, and like it doesn't feel like there's a cohesive strategy for all these game developers to launch a game fast and then iterate with that game. And so what we come across at OpenFort is like, all right, how do we actually help these people lower the barrier of creating an ecosystem wallet themselves, so that, yes, today there are chain wallets that exist, but what if we can have 1,000 ecosystems that can actually flourish in the space? What if we have a gaming ecosystem that might be in Thailand and have like a huge audience in Thailand and every Taiwanese people love it? Or why don't we have like a gaming ecosystem that focuses on a specific genre, and you know that in the gaming space everyone will go to that ecosystem because they have the best games of that genre? So the idea that we come across, the product that we're building, it's a unified gaming wallet experience where we don't per se want to impose the constraint, like we don't want to impose our own vision of the design product per se, but the idea is that these gaming ecosystems have all the tools to actually start onboarding their own users with their own experience, start having their own management of the private key if they want, and start bringing more and more people on chain via smooth transactions. So I'm going to delve a bit deeper in these three. The first one is the unified authentication experience. I think so far we've come across a lot of continue with your wallet, sign in with your wallet, connect your wallet, etc. But most of these ecosystems, they actually they want to have a more direct relationship with those players. And the way that they actually do that is, one, with branding, but also through like the initial point of onboarding a user. And so that basically means that you'll have more gaming chains willing to risk their brand and their recognition to be on top of those other games and saying like, hey, if you actually recognize my own ecosystem in that chain the same way that players today recognize Epic Games, players today recognize Steam, et cetera, these will in the future lever like more network effects for the whole ecosystem in itself. The second important point and innovation that we did at OpenFort is that we basically built complete open source signer management. So basically it's a way for these gaming ecosystems to manage the private key in a self-custodial way. And so we open sourced as well this part of the stack, which we call Shield. And it's basically the idea that these ecosystems are able to store these recovery shares themselves and avoid the issues that they might have in like different jurisdictions, avoid the issues that they might have with different geography, laws, etc., etc. And the third part, and I think most important here, is that today developers are mostly confused into like what type of environments they need to use. They are confused in what type of smart contracts they need to use. If I'm onboarded, like as a game developer, if I'm onboarded into one ecosystem, can I leverage the token in that ecosystem? Can I leverage some gas sponsorship in that ecosystem? Those are like the type of questions that game developers are actually asking. They're not asking, hey, what's the finality of your chain? How you come across what's your consensus algorithm? The only thing that they want to know is like how much users I'll be able to tap once I'm on your network. How much sponsorship can you do? Like meaning, what budget do you give me for acquiring new users? And so what we come across is like a more of a unified experience where as an ecosystem, you are able to offer these ecosystem gas policies and paymasters to the game developers and say, hey, if we are, if you onboard into my system, you might have the first, $10,000 on gas sponsored by me if you reach these specific KPIs, or if you reach these specific, monthly active wallets, etc. You'll have like further enhancements within the ecosystem, etc. So this type of customizations, it's something that allow ecosystems grow stronger and manage those games easily. No? Another interesting part, for instance, as well, is the whole idea of permissions. Some people call them permissions, some people call them session keys. The whole idea is that as an ecosystem, you actually will be able to scope the interactions that you can do on behalf of the user within the game, and so you can start having things like more interesting on-chain things like subscriptions if you want. You can program within like a player can program and saying, hey, I want to buy specific assets whenever they go live in 1 month, like this, like the famously. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, Steam announced like the summer sale. It's like a big event for any player out there. So you can actually start doing things like programmatically on-chain with this type of session keys as well, where players can set up specific automatic purchases if they want. And so with this type of tooling, what we realize is that, okay, we just don't give, like, I think in constraints, there's like creativity for most of these game developers, and it happens as well in game jams. So we no longer give like a box with pieces that they need to put together, but we also suggest different shapes, like different customizations that they need to do. And is that in that opinionation where these ecosystems can actually start building things that, or like at least tests and experiments that are worth for them exploring. So things like the authentication, and now realizing, okay, are people actually recognizing our brand? Are people connecting more with our brand because we have this onboarding flow that is more native? And so one of the benefits of having this ecosystem passport, ecosystem wallet, you can call it whatever you want from a Lingua perspective, is that you now have different games using the same type of SDKs and using the same software that you provide, like the same opinionated software that you provide to these game developers. And as a result, there's less liquidity fragmentation across the stack. So now these players can basically start playing game A, game B, they're in the same ecosystem, I tap into the same wallet, I can do the similar actions, etc., etc. And that's it for the talk. If there's any further questions, please feel free to reach out. We're going to be around. I'll leave as well here the GitHub. We try to publish everything open source. And thanks everyone for the attention.
Anybody have any questions? I think we're still waking up. Okay, well, I guess if there's no questions, then thank you.
Good.
Thank you for the talk.
Yeah.